Have you ever felt it? The powerful belief that you can't do something? The overwhelming urge to quit doing an exercise. The inner voice saying that you don't have the skills or intelligence necessary. Or how about the outer voice of other people telling you you can't do something? Or maybe you find it hard to get going on starting that new workout because the TV has this mesmerizing power to keep you glued to your chair. It's a powerful force, and most of the time, it's stronger than you. But that doesn't mean you can't learn to fight it. Your mind is responsible for holding you in exactly the place you are right now. Biases, indoctrination, and that feeling that you can't do something you have done over and over again when you're at the crucial moment to perform. The mind's capacity to grab hold of something it deems as true and hold on to it for dear life despite overwhelming evidence to contradict it is what produces that sheeple effect that haughty libertarians talk about. However, those same haughty libertarians don't realize that often it is their need to be right, their mind's desire to hold on to the indoctrination that even the libertarian movement has, makes them just as big a herd of cattle as everyone that's not awake in their eyes. None of us are truly awake, and I will prove this to you by teaching you how the mind holds you in your own biases and how your ego, if it goes unchecked, can be the most effective totalitarian dictator you have ever known. Long after the government is gone, you will still be controlled by your own unwillingness to step outside your comfort zone and explore new ideas. And that is a regime all its own. To be free, we have to see reality the way it is. No bullshit, no biases, no indoctrination. But before you start feeling too bad, this is natural. It's the mind's default. It is this regimented agenda we all follow to our own personal indoctrination that shields us from seeing all the options in the scenario, because some leave a bad taste in our mouths, even though there is nothing objectively wrong with that particular option. But because we've developed some phobia, some stigma around it. But it is just our mind playing tricks on us. Today is the first day you will have an opportunity to vie for control and to hopefully someday get it back. So the first question you've got to be asking is, how do you lack control? Your mind tells you that you can't do things because it doesn't like it. I'm not kidding. This force is called resistance. It is the inner struggle of your mind against what you want and need to self-actualize, and it is harder to kick than crack cocaine. But for those who kick it, life is changed forever. Resistance prevents us from achieving our inner genius, a Roman word denoting our inner spirit. It is that something that calls us to be great. Hitler wanted to be a painter. He never painted anything. Imagine how different the world would look if he hadn't let resistance prevent him from doing what he most wanted to do. These are the things that receive the greatest resistance from our brain when you take them on, meaning they are the things that even when you are fully capable of physically doing them, your brain will tell you you can't do it. The pursuit of any calling in writing, painting, music, film, dance, or any creative art, however marginal or unconventional, entrepreneurial activities, diets or health regimens, anything for spiritual advancement, example, meditation, any activity whose aim is tighter abdominals, anything designed to overcome habit or addiction. This is where the holding on to the biases happens. Education of any kind, example, reading books. Any act of political, moral, or ethical courage, including the decision to change for the better some unworthy pattern of thought or conduct in ourselves. We believe what we want to believe and won't reconsider even in the face of undeniable evidence. Example, when people denied the evidence that the earth is round. Apparently some people still do, which is scary. Any activity that will help others, world hunger, peace, etc. Any decision that entails commitment of the heart, marriage, children, rocky patches in relationships, etc. The undertaking of any principled stand in the face of adversity. And this is the one that will be the first proof that you can overcome the crippling resistance of the mind. Martin Luther King, he had a dream, and it was adverse to the majority opinion at the time, and he stood up every day in the face of potential death and spoke out. This is a man who knew how to change his brain. What was his secret? And finally, any opportunity or inclination to show appreciation in a genuine way or vulnerability. Before I tell you the secret, there is more you need to know about the concept of resistance, so you have even more motivation to stand up against it. Resistance comes when we reject immediate gratification or short-term gain for long-term gain, growth, health, or integrity. This doesn't come natural to us, so many of us spend our entire lives doing without it because we are born functioning little better than animals and only have the potential to learn to act to gain and keep what we want. And we only get to act to gain to keep by developing virtue, which can only be developed through the difficult task of overcoming resistance, which I will get to, I promise. Resistance is invisible, it's internal, it's insidious, it's implacable, it's impersonal, it's infallible, it's universal, it never sleeps, it plays for keeps, it is fueled by fear, it only opposes in one direction, and it recruits allies. Remember, the highest treason a crab can commit is to leap for the rim of the bucket. That's why the crustaceans will right their wrong, will ease the pain of corrupting the moral code with which they live by pulling the crab back into the boiling pot. That is why no crab ever gets out alive, because they all boil together, because they aren't brave enough to conquer resistance and allow each of them to escape. The worst fear any human can have is to be afraid of their own friend's success, because it will shine light on their own resistance and failure. Resistance will tell you anything to keep you from doing your work or realizing your dreams. It will purge, it will fabricate, it will falsify, seduce, bully, cajole. Resistance is protein. It will take any form if that's what it takes to deceive you. It will reason with you like a lawyer or jam a 9mm in your face like a stick-up man. Resistance has no conscience, and it will pledge anything to get a deal, then double-cross you as soon as your back is turned. If you take resistance at its word, you deserve what you get. Resistance is always lying and always full of shit. Put the state up against resistance. It doesn't even compare. You are your own roadblock to success every single day. So how do we recognize resistance? It will show up in many, many forms. I want to help you solve resistance in your life and find and realize your dreams. But before I do that, I need to point out a few ways that resistance comes into your life, interacts with all the things that you want to do to prevent you from doing them. Some of this may seem harsh. It may be a little bit of tough love, but remember, it is love. I do care, and I want to cure the world from unhappiness. 1. Procrastination, the beginning of the end. If you're coming up with reasons not to do something or saying you'll do it tomorrow, that is the voice of resistance, ladies and gentlemen, and you need to tell it is wrong. 2. Entertainment. That can be TV, sex, drugs, gossip, alcohol, food, all the handiwork of resistance. The government didn't create TV, and it doesn't have to push it. Our own resistance keeps it alive and kicking as we sit back, relax, and wait to die in our comfy armchairs. 3. Trouble. You know that 2-year-old that keeps knocking over expensive breakable items in the house? What is the adult equivalent of negative attention? The more you screw up, the more you put your emotions on blast through Facebook, and the more you shoot up gas stations and kill innocent children, the more attention you receive. And if you look inside the mind of most criminals, you'll realize a lot of them did it for the attention. And they get to be small-time celebrities by being on our news channels over and over and over again. They become famous. And it's certainly a lot easier than pursuing real fame and fortune. 4. Self-dramatization. Why do you think The Real World is one of the top grossing shows in America? People love drama. You know why? It keeps them from noticing that there is nothing actually going on in their lives. Drama fills the void. 5. Self-medication. I could make up a disease, and if it's one that's plausible enough that you might get it, most people will start to self-medicate for it. Don't believe me? One word: Ebola. But let's look at a more sane example. Look at the flu vaccine, for example. Now, it does protect against the flu. However, there are over 1 billion strains of the flu, and the vaccine only protects you from the top 5 from the previous year. And then people go around thinking they're immune to the flu. No, most people who get the flu vaccine just happen to get a small flu and then are just as susceptible as the rest of us to the flu, except for those 5 strains. Instead of thinking about washing our hands or doing all the things that actually keep us healthy, we take a shot and assume we're good. Being healthy is a daily practice, and it doesn't come in pill form. 6. Victimhood. Just like I was talking about before, you're capable of so much as a human being. You have unique talent and incredible souls, but instead many would rather go the easy route and pretend to be a victim of their circumstance, their fate, their health, their wealth, instead of realizing their greatness. You can't bottle self-actualization and human need. It can't be given with a welfare check. There is no easy route to all the human needs. You have to work for it, or you get very little, and the little you get doesn't make you happy, and happiness is priceless. 7. The choice of a mate. Many of us choose partners in life that are not worthy of our talents and convictions, don't believe in us, or actually hold us back either because they're not on the same path and you are suddenly forced to choose between your dream and theirs, or because your own inner resistance wants you to stay in a boiling pot with them. 8. Unfinished items. Books, projects, the yard, you name it. If you have left something unfinished, something you found important enough to start, you either gave into resistance or you didn't really think about the process in the first place. Short-sightedness, by the way, is another word for resistance. 9. Unhappiness. The ultimate human goal. And your brain is fucking it up for you. Don't worry, mine too, but I'm getting over it. If you hate yourself in any way, or you hate your life in any way, you should do something about it. But you probably won't, or you'll do it tomorrow. This is resistance. The self-gratifying voice that when challenged roars, "This is who I am. Don't you love me for who I am? Why would you want me to change? The world just doesn't understand me and should shape itself around me. It's not my fault. I am this way or that way, and I can't control it." Yes, you can. I did. And that is why I'm happy now, and why you're going to be happy too. When you stop giving into resistance, I know you can do it. You are capable of everything you want, nothing less. You can do all of it. What makes it tricky is that everyone around you is going to tell you that I'm wrong. Your inner voice is going to tell you that I'm wrong, because resistance is strong, and the crabs that make it out of the pot set this standard for everyone else that challenges the power of resistance. But you need to fight it for your own happiness. I get nothing out of it if you take my advice. My happiness is not dependent on you taking my advice, but it is dependent on me overcoming the resistance inside of me, telling me not to make this video. There are so many people that say the world can't wake up. They don't care. No, they're suffering from resistance and forced stronger than any dream, and made stronger by society's strange ideas of what happiness looks like. It looks different for everyone. Reality check. So only you have the power to free you. But I can show you the path, and now I will. But you have to do one thing for me first. You have to give up the most difficult thing in the world. But I promise, if you give it up, you can come over and enjoy happiness with me. I had to give it up, but I swear it's worth the reward. I need you to give up the last symptom of resistance in order to have it all. I need you to give up 10 fundamentals fundamentalism. This is any bias, specific philosophy, hero worship, and even your own religion. I know this is tough, but everything rests on this because overcoming resistance is going to challenge all of that. And if you are strong in your convictions about what other people have told you is best for you, then you can't get to happiness. It's the real key. The key is objectivity, seeing the world the way it is instead of the way you would like it to be. I have just pointed out 10 ways that resistance shows up in your life. There are many others, but the point is, we're currently wired to think as a unit. This is through years of evolution. Cavemen had to act together to eat and survive. We're programmed by years of hunter-gatherer mind. We know how to fit in with the clan. Don't worry about that. About fitting in. It's natural to you to fit in as a human being into a tribe. You'll find a place. But this is not where happiness lies. Back when we had to live as a tribe in order to survive, we didn't have time to think about life-altering questions like, who am I? What is my purpose? We were too busy trying to not get eaten alive by a tiger or a bear. But now we have come to a time in our society, in our lives, when most of the world has the ability and privilege to ask these questions because it's not about just survival. Those who survive are not deeply happy. They are glad that they get to see another sunrise, sure, but they're just existing. Instead, I'm challenging you to go beyond survival to thrival. Right now, we don't know how to be free. It goes against our evolution. It goes against what society says. It goes against the guys with the gun who want us to behave and feel anchored to society by making us feel guilty for wanting more. But if you give into that resistance that others lay on you, that you will constantly lay on yourself every day, you'll never be truly happy. And that would be sad, because only through happiness can come world peace. And through that happiness can world hunger be eradicated, because everyone can see their own potential and no one is self-sabotaging. You can give a man a fish every day. You can even teach them to fish. But until they believe that they can fish for themselves, will they actually eat every day? And we can move beyond a world where we're just trying to get everyone fed to a world where everyone is self-actualized, where people are living their dreams, even in Africa, because there is no stronger power than overcoming resistance. If you can do that, no one can take away your freedom. You wouldn't let them. A happy society wouldn't stand for it. So the next question is, how does fundamentalism hurt individuality and therefore happiness? Because it only gives you the answers to what others think, not what you think. And you are the only creator of your own happiness. Only you know the specific flavor that drives your taste buds wild. You are a unique bit of stardust. Do you really think that anyone can give you what you need besides you? And for those who say that we need to work together to achieve happiness, and that happiness can be achieved as a society, they don't understand true happiness. Happiness can only be achieved by an individual. There is a reason that they say there's no I in team. When the goal is to make a society happy, the individual suffers. Everyone just exists. There's no actual happiness. Yes, ideally, even though this has never happened as much as it's been tried, everyone gets their needs met, but there is still no happiness. And we are still back at square one on one of the most basic human needs, self-actualization. That can only be achieved by you. Only you know that particular smell that makes your heart sing, because our senses are unique and we all want something different. The first step in moving beyond fundamentalism is to get rid of those ethical systems that we've been taught since our youth. School and society and many other sources have taught you a system of ethics, and I'm going to ask you to throw them all out because they're wrong and will lead you to being unhappy for the rest of your life. If you are willing to throw out what everyone is telling you, I promise you will be rewarded. If you are willing to give up what I call cage ethics, you will become free, and that will lead you to finding your own individual happiness. Cage ethics are summarized as fundamentalism. It is any notion that you have to be something, have to do something, or have to think something. You don't even have to take my advice. However, I do think it will shorten the path if you hear me out. People are living life based on a time clock instead of a value system. Instead of considering what they want, they are considering what they need to do. People are prioritizing life through cage ethics. Ideas like altruism, duty, habit, biases, indoctrination, and requirement. All of the ideas that make you think there is a universal right way of doing things that is cookie cut for every human being, instead of freedom ethics. Want, desire, passion, mindfulness, presence. All the ideas that have you constantly re-examining the world. But in order to examine the world, you need to be objective. This will allow you to actually see what is in front of your nose. If you're blindfolded by fundamentalism in any form, you are not seeing all of your options and potentially missing the best, most efficient, cheapest, or most essential routes to where you want to go. So what am I asking? I'm asking you to go pro. Most people dedicate their lives to what they think they're supposed to be doing. Getting married, having kids, buying a house, working your way up the corporate ladder. That's all well and good if that's objectively what makes you happy. Now, you can do those things and be happy because that happens to be what makes you happy, which is great. Society fits right in with what you want, and you're part of the lucky few. But for most of us, we're pretty hesitant and dissatisfied with the path well traveled. We hope for eternal glory or maybe to play pro ball. You don't get to do that cool stuff without taking the risk. So I'm asking you to do what I call going pro. It means you go all in on whatever it is you want to do. There is not one thing on earth that can take you away from the path you've chosen because you know you want it 100%. That's tough. Yes, you will still feel the pull and tug of resistance from your family, your friends, society, your latest love interest, and even yourself every day. But you want to get to happy. If you want to get there, you ignore it as best you can and find ways to cope. And I will tell you the best way to cope a little later on. But for now, I need you to get very comfortable with the idea of having no one on your side. Everyone thinks you're crazy and potentially living out of your car. But at least you will get to escape the trap of buying stuff and doing activities in order to escape the void that is left by your unpursued dreams. And before you tell me I'm insane and no one does that, let me tell you a little bit about how I got to the kind of happiness that no one on earth could ever take away from me. Insults, worries, all that stuff, they exist in my life. The voice of resistance never goes away, but there are ways to quiet the voice and strengthen your confidence to a roar that will almost always drown out the voice of resistance. At this point, it's like a dull irritation that happens from time to time, but I know that what I'm doing is my calling, so it barely even registers. Right now, you think I'm nuts, and I could care less. I'm going to release this video anyway, because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that happiness is possible, and I found a faster route to it, and I want everyone on earth to have what I have, and I want them to have it for free because your success takes nothing away from mine. That's how I know that this is the real thing, because I can share it and I never feel threatened by giving it away. Yes, it is possible to set up a scenario where everyone achieves success and that doesn't hinder anyone else from reaching it. I'll give you 3 guesses who doesn't want you to have that kind of information. But here's my story. I worked hard in college. I worked on my degree for 5 years, mainly because I switched my major. I had no clue what I wanted to do, and I was unhappy with every option except one. I read a philosophy book in college that changed my life, and I wanted to work to promote that philosophy for the rest of my life. I wanted to work for a certain organization that did just that. During college, I went through a tough time with my health, to the point where I was looking death in the face. And at that moment, I realized that I had to do anything to get to happy. After graduation, I hopped on a plane to go to a conference that the organization was hosting. I made a pitch to the CEO, who showed very little interest in having me work there. It wasn't surprising. I had no real credentials. As with many jobs, schools won't tell you this because they want to keep making money off of you, but this organization did not care about my degree or my grades. They wanted experience. I would have been better off skipping college. I spent 5 years prepping for a future only to find out that I'd taken all the wrong steps. I had never worked a real job, and this was an organization with 8 people working there at the time, which meant it was a place where everyone there had to know what they were doing, because with that few people in the organization, you don't have time to manage people. I was a tiny fish in a big pond that requires some serious skills to get in. The people there had been studying for years. I got home and started to think again about what I wanted to do to build up the credentials. I thought about my options, and the more I thought about it, the more depressed I became. I realized I was going to be spending every waking moment miserable at a job that was not my dream job. Maybe it was a great job, but I was still going to be wishing I was somewhere else. So to make a long story short, I took a campaign job where I could live at the person's house, but I didn't get paid. That person had connections with the CEO and said he would help me make the connection I wanted. 2 months after securing it, I hopped in my crappy car, packed everything that would fit, and moved 4 states away to New Hampshire to pursue with all my heart the only job I'd ever wanted. My family thought I was insane. I left my boyfriend I'd been with for 5 years and thought I was going to marry. And I knew no one except this state rep and his family who took me in. But when the state rep had a heart attack, the situation of having me stay was too stressful for them to keep taking on. And since his health was not up for the campaign, I had to move out and move home. I had no money, and though I'd been making inroads to get this job, there was no way I could stay. I could barely afford food. Many people say I had gone pro and failed, but they hadn't seen anything yet. I got on the phone with my family and did the hardest thing I'd ever done. I told my parents, who had raised me never wanting for anything, that I was going to stay. They wanted to know where I was going to live. I told them, out of my car. The silence on the end of the phone was deafening. I could feel the panic coming from the other end. My mom begged me to come home with everything she had because she was scared and she loved me. She'd be sad that I told you and embarrassed of this now, but she told me I should find another dream. It wasn't her fault that she thought or said it. Imagine if your child told you she was going to live out of her car. It would terrify and horrify most parents, and she is particularly protective. She did it because she was afraid for me, and her fear, her resistance disguised as fear, wouldn't let her believe in me. I don't blame her. I blame society and education for never bothering to prepare anyone for overcoming their own resistance. What is the good in education if when it comes time to pursue our dreams, we don't even know how to overcome the most crippling obstacle of all, our own fear? And as scared as I was, as easy as it would have been for me to just go home and regroup and eat one of the amazing meals my mother makes and warm up by the fire, I didn't. I chose to stay because as scared as I was of living out of my car, of having no job and being essentially a loser, I apologize for this, but it is how I thought of myself at the time, I was more scared of the life I had waiting for me, a life of mediocrity. I don't think most people would have thought of it this way. I think most people would have chosen the easy route, not because I don't think people are tough, but because a lot of people haven't gone through a real life crisis or tragedy at that point, and by the time they do, they're locked into a family and the home and the kids. That's why we call it a midlife crisis. Most of us realize too late when we're too locked in or old to live the life we dreamt of, and that scared me. I think only because I had faced death did I make the tough decision, because once you really see the worst thing that could happen to you in your life, you sort of laugh at being homeless. It's far less daunting. I found a job 3 weeks later, a job that didn't work out again, and I'd go through 5 more before I got to work for the dream job. And at this point, even the more gutsy go-getters in my life were saying, you need to move on. Come back to this when it's reasonable. I lost my home, several jobs, and now I had lost my entire support system. There was not one person who still thought I was going to get this job, but all the while I started getting creative about getting the job. If I could just prove to the CEO that I would be amazing at this, that I could bring something that no one else could to the table, he would have to hire me. And that's the key, really, standing out. So I started my first YouTube channel, and I brought it to him after I'd gathered a following of young students. He was impressed that I was able to get young students interested in listening to me talk about philosophy. This was valuable to him and the organization, so he hired me shortly after. And every moment of poverty and self-doubt and fear and anxiety was worth it. I could have spent 10 years doing something else and hoping someday I would get that job, but instead I got the job in less than a year after I graduated from college. How many people get their dream job that soon after college? Most people will never get it. Why? Because they're too scared. They doubt too much. They panic at the start of trouble, and they give in and refuse to go pro. Going pro means you do it 100%. Homeless, hungry, jobless, you find a way to turn every disadvantage into an advantage because your disadvantages make you unique. They make you invaluable to that job. The CEO knew what I was doing to get this job. He knew from me and from talking to others that I was living out of my car. This just confirmed for him how hard I was going to work at the job when I got it. You're not weaker because of your issues and setbacks in life. Many people just choose to live in victimhood. They don't choose to push. Like Will Smith in The Pursuit of Happiness or the drug dealer in Suits, you're unique and special. Yes, you don't have a degree, but degrees don't make you smart. They may prove that you are smart, but you had it all along and you don't have to go to school. Many jobs don't care about that. In all the jobs I had, professional jobs, not one person asked me about my degree. Not one. And these were quality jobs that paid well. I got them because I'm a go-getter. I go pro. If I do something, I go pro. As a note, we are moving towards a society where education will be free through iTunes, Coursera, and other things. We have the internet now, and there is a way to get certified in many different things online. Very few professionals will be requiring a degree. We are moving away from a society where people believe that information should be paid for or taught in desks by one person. Our parents' generation will likely be the end of formal education. Another rule about going pro is that you can't do it for anyone else besides yourself. When I decided to get my health in order finally, after failing over and over again and letting resistance win every time, I decided to stop making the excuse of having thyroid disease, the reason why I didn't lose weight. I said, Lauren, you're better than that, and I went pro. I work out every day, even if it's just martial arts or some standing meditation. Everything counts, and I've lost more weight than any time that I've ever tried. And I'm going to keep going until I get where I want to go because it's something I objectively want. If I were doing it for society, which is why I did it every other time, I would fail yet again. This time was different because I made a list of reasons why I wanted to lose this weight. And every time resistance hits, I look at that list and think about what my life will be like after I've accomplished this goal. And then I get my head in the game and go pro. And I don't let my brain decide when I'm tired. Too many people don't push hard enough with exercise because resistance hits and we think we're tired. Go 10 more miles. I know you can do it. And somewhere past the resistance, you do too. So how do you beat resistance? You go pro. You just do it. But sometimes you need a little more help because going pro for me took facing death. So it's easier for me to go pro. How can someone young do it? Now it's finally time to share the secret with you of how to successfully beat resistance. 1. Think about what you have to lose. If you're just graduating and you have no kids and no significant other, you have it easiest. You have no reason to not go pro. You have nothing to lose. If you have these things, you need to work within them to go pro. Don't let your past decisions, your health, or anything else be an excuse. There is always a path to success, and there is always an excuse right in front of it. The obstacles make it tougher, but not not impossible. 2, think about why you want it. If it's for someone else, cross it off. You're not gonna do it. Just give up on it now or go back and find a real reason to do it. It has to be a real reason, really based on you. If it's not real or you are really deep down doing it for someone else, your resistance is going to find that little bit of dissonance and use it to crush your dreams. Make it real, make it for you. 3, choose one thing at a time. The human capacity to multitask is next to non-existent. We suck at multitasking. And those who are sitting here saying, I can wash dishes and talk on the phone, ask yourself how much you are really hearing the conversation on the other end. Count the amount of times you ask, what? Can you repeat yourself or hold on? If you're hearing every word, take a look at the dishes you're doing at the pace you would normally do them if you weren't multitasking. If you're going slower, you are failing at multitasking. You could have done both things in the same amount of time separately and done both of them better. If you see spots on your dishes still, you are getting my point. Do one thing at a time and you will do it faster, more efficiently, and you are normally only going to have to do it once. There are exceptions, such as when you didn't get all the information before doing things, and this leads into number 4. Formulating a plan. It's time to make a plan before you do anything at all. Chart a course to the destination, and if you want to get a gold star, think about possible obstacles along the way and how to deal with them. You're not going to be able to plan for everything, but when things on your list arrive and you know how to deal with them, they are not going to make you nearly as anxious, and you are less likely to give in to resistance. Anxiety is resistance' best ally besides rationalization. 5, when someone presents you with a new idea, don't act on habit and instinct. Be mindful. Mindfulness is about thinking about everything that is going on. Even when you do the dishes, you should be paying attention. This will come in as the last suggestion. When someone approaches you and talks to you about their religion and it's not the same as your own, listen. And don't listen and stop listening to pick apart all of their arguments. Just listen. Listen for truth, for wisdom. Only listen. Don't consider whether they're wrong or right, and certainly don't tell them. Who cares if they know whether they are wrong? What good does it do you to tell someone they're wrong? You're not likely to change their mind. Resistance is an extremely strong force for religion and any other fundamentalist ideas. The only way they are ever going to discover that they are wrong is by themselves. It will be a pivotal moment that you are unlikely to be involved in. You can't change the world's ideas with your words. It's not simple like that. Resistance will win against any logic you sell. Instead, learn just for you. And when you evaluate their argument to yourself later, don't weigh it against your own worldview. Weigh it against reality. Weigh it against what you know, not what you think, what society has taught you, only basic things like gravity. The more you give up in regards to your own opinions on things, the more you'll be able to see. And for a lot of people, this is going to be the hardest step, but it's really the most essential if you want to be happy. You have to stop attempting to show everyone on earth that you are smarter than they are. You're not smarter. You have different information. And when you try to show everyone you are smarter than them, it's the same morality and logic as a beauty contest. Even if you win, there was no long-term gain. It did nothing for your goals or dreams or inner soul. And if your goal is to be the most beautiful or the smartest, I have bad news for you. There is always going to be someone that knows something you don't know, and beauty fades. Then what do you have? If you get Alzheimer's and your hair falls out, what do you have? If you pursued real dreams with objective values, you're still going to have real happiness to carry you to the end of your days. And trust me, people are more envious of happy people than they are of smart or pretty people. I'm not helping my case with that, but I'm just saying, using metrics based on what society thinks of you is not going to make you happy. So stop trying to be right and just be a good listener. It was the best day of my life when I stopped trying to argue with everyone in sight and started learning things from every person I met. I'm a lot happier. And surprisingly, people also seem to find me more intelligent and attractive when I listen. It's like magnetic or something. The more silence I give, the more people become intensely curious about my thoughts. 6. Know your priorities. Having a good set of values is going to help you with this. My values are objectivity, productivity, independence, integrity, honesty, benevolence, justice, and pride. These values are values that can be upheld by an individual. This is very important because you are an individual now with individual goals. There may be more values, but these values are the ones I have stuck to and the ones that got me to success before I understood resistance. When I held true to them, I never gave in to resistance, because when I wanted something, I realized that I needed to go out and get it and not just dream about it. I realized I was going to have to put hard work into it when I really just wanted to turn on the TV. I realized no one could help me take every step I needed to take. Only I could venture to walk to success. There were support roles, but I had to be the one that made the journey, and that's what made it so much sweeter. I realized I couldn't pretend that a problem didn't exist and ignore it until it had thrown me so far off my goals that I couldn't get back. I realized that I could tell my future boss all kinds of things to make him think I was better than I was and make him hire me immediately, but in the long run, I would have lost my dream job for not living up to expectations. I realized that the people in my life that loved me and tried to pull me back meant well and were still in my life because they had other qualities that made them special to me. I realized I couldn't blame my host family for kicking me out. They couldn't take care of me because they needed to take care of themselves, and I couldn't blame the CEO for not hiring me right away because he couldn't afford to hire everyone that wanted a job there, or he wouldn't have had room for me when I came along and earned it. And I realized that when it was all said and done, I stuck to those values, and it worked, and that made me successful, only because I stuck with the convictions I had developed by looking at the reality of what I wanted and what to do to get it, something very few people do. My set of values got me to where I was going, and you may find those values are helpful to you too. I'll be doing a deeper study of values on this channel if you want to stay tuned, or if you like the values I'm talking about, click below to go to the philosophy channel I created to get my job. It could give you ideas for how to win over your boss at your dream job. 7. Finally, meditate. I know it might sound hokey, but I haven't steered you wrong so far. Meditation is very important to developing the life you want. It is the only thing that helps you see objective reality and put down filters to see the path to your dreams and happiness. But it also helps quiet the voice of resistance. It is rejuvenating as well, so it will give that roar of passion some extra volume as well. Objectivity through meditation is the best way to fight resistance through fundamentalism. And I will be speaking more on meditation in further videos because it's a very important topic and needs to be discussed at length. So please do subscribe to my channel. Do those 7 things, and I promise you, you will be closer to reaching happiness. And when you are scared as hell of all that you are becoming, remember, the counterfeit innovator is wildly self-confident. The real one is scared to death. You found something you care about enough that you're scared to lose it. If it weren't important, resistance would give you a pass and not nag you. The more resistance fights you, the more confident you can be of the fact that you're doing something incredible. Fear should fuel you. That's why so many people don't find happiness, because it goes against the very fabric of your being, and who is happy with mediocre and common? It's the hard work that makes it feel so good. True happiness lies outside the limits of the mind. You can't help others when you're unhappy. I couldn't help you in this way if I hadn't found my happiness, and now I have this great gift I can give to the world. This is my gift to humanity. This is the gift I can give you, hope for your own happiness. I wish it were an easier path, but the best things in life are the things you work the hardest for. It builds respect for what you do and the courage to keep doing it. And for my freedom fighters out there still worried about the government, it will fall when there is a better offer on the